Hello and welcome to the Wellbeing Wanderer Podcast. I'm your host, Kat Burdett, wellbeing coach, eternal nomad, and self-love enthusiast. Come join me on a journey as I deep dive into what it really takes to achieve that happy, content state of being. The goal of this show is to bring you those feel-good vibes, expand your learning, and encourage your own personal growth so that you can discover what well-being means for you. I'll be exploring every and any genre, including health, mindset, spirituality, and much more. So get ready for a juicy, mind-opening, raw, and real experience where no topic is off limits. I hope this helps you to feel good. Hello and welcome back to the Wellbeing Wanderer Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you've had a great week and you've been enjoying the sunshine. If it has been sunny for you, like it has here in the UK, it's been amazing weather. Now, I have a question for you. Are you enjoying this show? If that is the case, and the answer is yes, I have a small, tiny favor to ask of you. Simply, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button and share this podcast with just one friend. Those two simple acts make such a massive impact, and it's the best way you can help support me. Thank you so much. Now, on to today's episode. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Carly Ann, a therapist and attachment coach who helps people move from anxious to secure by breaking free from overthinking, self-doubt, and unhealthy relationship patterns. Her mission is to guide individuals out of feeling crazy in love and back to the connection with the confident, secure version of themselves they were always meant to be. Carly Ann is also a podcast host, speaker, and group facilitator, known for creating safe, empowering spaces where real, lasting change can unfold. And let me tell you, this conversation is exactly that. It's empowering, it's insightful, and it's deeply validating. We talk about what it really takes to heal anxious attachment, how to stop outsourcing your sense of safety to others, and why chasing closure might be keeping you stuck. Carly shares incredible practical tools, relatable truths, and some laughs along the way. You are going to walk away from this one with more compassion for yourself and a renewed belief that, yes, you absolutely can feel secure again. So without further ado, here is the wonderful Carly Ann. Hello, beautiful Carly Ann, and welcome to the Wellbeing Wanderer Podcast. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I am thrilled to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I think you know already, like I'm a fan of the podcast.
Yay.
So genuinely happy to be here.
Yay, that's amazing. It's always nice to hear that and hear that I'm producing some good stuff for people. So thank you for sharing that. So you will know then that I ask my signature question with everyone to start. So that for you is, Carly, what does well-being mean to you?
I did know, and I've been thinking about it even this morning, and I don't know if I've got a set answer. I just ended up thinking I'll just have to see what comes to me. Because I think for me, it is just us as a whole being, us as a person, as a human, and I guess what we do, how we treat ourselves, decisions we make with our best interests at heart, like to be well, how do we make ourselves as well as we possibly can, mentally, physically, emotionally. And I think for me, it's a lot about how we treat ourselves, speak to ourselves, respect ourselves. Yeah, and the decisions that we make around that, and whether it has our best interests at heart.
Yeah, so that self-focused, putting yourself first, loving yourself vibe.
Yeah, loving yourself vibe. And also, I think just looking after yourself. Sometimes our most basic needs. I think when it comes to well-being, for me, it's more almost like those, our basic needs. Are we meeting our own basic needs? Because our well-being, we need like safety, we need to let ourselves eat when we need to eat, we need to sleep, those kind of things is really. Then beyond that, I start to think about happiness and like like bigger things. But for well-being, I think for me, I'm just like, am I looking after my basic well-being?
Yeah, looking after your being, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you for answering that. Now, as someone who has spent most of my life feeling chronically anxious, and since healed that side of myself, I know just how important the work that you do is. Um, but I would love to know your journey and a bit more about your journey, how it started, what you went through, and what you've had to overcome.
My earlier years, it's funny because I'm looking back in hindsight and I can see so much, like so many challenges. I can see a lot of cycles that I was in. I can see the anxiety. I can see the low self-esteem. But at that time, I didn't see it. I was just living life. I was making a lot of poor choices. I was chasing people, chasing love in the wrong places. I was drinking a lot. I was spending all my money. Just at the time, I really thought I was having fun. And sometimes I look back confused, like I was having fun, but maybe I wasn't looking after my well being. That is for sure. And then in my later 20s, I went through a breakup. I had already started looking into like happy. I think, hold on, let me go before the breakup. So, sort of somewhere in my later 20s, I had this feeling that there has to be more. Like there's got to be more than this. This just can't be it. And what I did know, if I didn't know that I struggled with anxiety, I knew that I had a problem with feeling quite low.
Mm.
And I just thought there's just got to be more. And I started reading a lot around happiness, what makes us happy, how do we get happier, and started learning a lot around that. Late 20s, went through a breakup, realized quite quickly I didn't even want to be in that relationship. Why did I stay in it? Came to the conclusion it was a lot about my self-worth, and asked myself, well, what else am I not doing? What else am I ignoring? And that's really when this journey started of looking at my patterns. I started dating again, saw all of these unhealthy patterns again. And that is when eventually I really started to see all the anxiety, all the numbing that I'd been doing, all of the just the challenges that I'd just been covering them up so well because I had a good set of friends, I had a good job, I was seemingly confident, I was in quite a good place in that sense, but inside I had this like feeling of chaos.
Were you able to identify like where that came from, like before you went through all of those things?
Yes, I always knew that in terms of my upbringing, we're talking there being unmet needs consistently, chaos, unpredictability, uh, substance misuse, like all the things that, like I would say, children aren't genuinely, I believe, are not supposed to be around, or is not good for their well-being and not good for that sense of safety and moving into adulthood with a secure attachment. All of those things that bring on an insecure attachment, basically. So yeah, there was never any question about that. I always knew that, but I thought I'd come out like unscathed, really.
Mm.
Like, look, I've gone to uni, I'm doing all of these things. Look at these friends, I've moved to London, I'd escaped it, I'd fully escaped it. And I think I thought that meant I was, and I guess in some ways that is really winning and that is successful. I had escaped it. That had always been the plan, to escape that. But I guess I didn't realize that I didn't have that self-love, and I just hadn't figured out what a nice calm life is.
Yeah, isn't
It's like
our
lots of highs.
yeah, isn't our ego amazing and our subconscious like what it hides from us? Like I
Mm.
find it really fascinating. And there are times certainly I myself have felt like, yeah, oh, I'm absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong. And I think not that there's anything wrong, I don't like to use that, but oh, I'm fine. There's no
Yeah.
issues, shall we say. I feel confident or whatever it may be. But actually, it was all just a cover up. And sometimes it takes a while and also a relationship to really bring that into focus. And I think that's what I found with myself as well, going through a lot of relationships that have been unsuccessful. It was all just a reflection of me and what I was emitting, and therefore attracting to me, and what I was allowing, and there were no boundaries. And wow, I mean, relationships are one of our greatest teachers. But it sounds like you're in a good one now. So
Yes. Yeah, I got there eventually. It was a messy, bumpy road, and by no means am I now perfect and I never get triggered, but I'm certainly secure enough. And that's all we need. We just need to be secure enough to sustain a relationship, you know. But from what you just said, like a lot of similarities in terms of what it was like for me. And I learned so much about myself from relationships as well, and especially the trips and the falls that came along with it.
yeah, they're such great teachers.
Yeah.
Hard, but great.
When you're in it, and this is the thing, is when you're in it, it is just, it's a whole other world. And then when you're out of it and you can see things clearer again, and then you're speaking to people who are probably going to be, many of the people listening to this, I'm sure, are in that place. And it's just so raw when you're there, and it can feel like it's never going to end. And I remember I used to think like, maybe I just can't change, maybe it's just not going to work for me, especially because with the anxious attachment, it's so bumpy, like the amount of times you have to fall and trip, you know, it's like, how many times do I have to go through this?
Absolutely. And while we're on that topic, what does it mean, just for everyone listening, to be anxiously attached? And how does that impact and show up in our lives? I know we've spoken a little bit about it already.
Yeah, like in terms of what it means, like our attachment style tends to be formed from our childhood bonds and relationships. It can be other significant relationships as well and experiences. And it's all about how we come into adulthood and how we form relationships with people, you know, how we experience and view love. And for an anxious attachment, it tends to be that their past experiences has been chaotic, it's been unpredictability, like sometimes love was there, then it's not there, is it going to be there today? So there was always that, there's this kind of highs and lows and chaos. And in relationships as an adulthood, that in adulthood there tends to be a lot of fears from that time where people maybe left for periods of time. And so for someone with an anxious attachment, if someone leaves, or if they, I don't know, are just not around you in a moment, or they're not in contact with you right now, it will feel like this is forever and they're never coming back. There isn't that kind of natural flow of relationships. It's just like they're leaving me, I'm not good enough. And the impact on that is not feeling good enough, anxiety, panic, hypervigilance of whether someone is leaving or are they not leaving, not feeling like you can cope when someone does leave, because obviously that happens as well. And, you know, the main strategies are attempts to get close to that person in any way, whether that is closeness through looking at their social media, whether it is through finding an excuse to reach out to them, whether it's someone you're actually in a relationship with and you need to know exactly where they are right now and you need them to come home right now. It shows up in so many different ways, but it can be really distressing.
It's like this deep insecurity, isn't it?
Deep insecurity that in some way I'm not good enough. So my view of myself is that I'm not good enough, that I'm inferior in some way, that I'm not deserving. The view of love and relationships are that they don't last, they hurt, I end up abandoned. The view of other people is quite often that they're better, they're on a pedestal and they leave me, you know. And that's often what you're seeing, is how people view themselves, love, and others. And for an anxious attacher, they view themselves as not as good. They have to work, they then feel like they have to work really hard to be good enough and to keep people. And the right people, you don't have to try that hard, We
No.
have to show up, enough and secure enough. I wouldn't say we can just constantly be our worst selves.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly like my journey. I mean, I think I was probably anxiously attached most of my life. And sometimes that still shows up to this day, it's those moments. So it's interesting what you say about abandonment, because that rings quite true to me. And certainly I still do have this fear of abandonment, which says to me then that there is still this anxiety there. And so perhaps I've healed a lot of it. And I know from speaking to Chris Ratcliffe, who is an attachment coach who came onto the show, he certainly did say, sometimes you move in and out of anxious attachment to secure. You become insecure and then secure. And I'm kind of in that place now, which is quite interesting. But the abandonment thing, like this need, like you say, that relates back to please love me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not I'm not good enough to be loved.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, and how self-love actually comes into this whole healing the anxious attachment style.
Yeah. It feels like something important to note at this point is that none of us want to experience abandonment, and that is a scary thing.
Mm.
And if there is something happening for anyone, no matter your attachment style, where there is the perception that you may be abandoned or left, we're going to experience some anxiety. So there is that normal amount as well. So in terms of the healing journey, we're probably always going to be a bit triggered if we feel like someone's going to leave, But that comes back to, but can I manage things enough? Have I got other things to fall on? Can I support myself and have that self-love? And when there is that abandonment wound, it's exactly that. It's wherever we are on that journey, if we're at that point where when that wound is activated, are we at the point where we just are fully acting out? We're not even knowing that we're in that cycle. We're just saying the things and doing the things, and it's fully taken over. Are we at the stage where we're aware of that wound and it's taken over, but I'm able to manage some of my behaviors and I'm able to control myself a little bit with knowing that, okay, this is an abandonment wound? So I think the severity is just dependent on you as a person, your experiences, and where you are in terms of the work that you've done. And in terms of self-love, I always say that the amount that we think we need someone else, that is how much we need ourselves. Like, I really do believe that. I remember once there being a time where I personally really felt needy, like it was like my whole body. And I remember knowing at that point, no, you think that you need this person that much, but it's how much you need to support yourself right now.
Mm.
Does self-love replace the needs that weren't met when you were younger? No. I think that's the mistake we can sometimes make. We think we're trying to meet that need, and we can't meet that need. We can be understanding of it, we can grieve it still, we can feel it when it comes up. That's one thing that we need to do. Maybe forever, who knows? But the wound when it comes to someone else now, today, as an adult, like that, I feel like, okay, it's different having a hug from yourself than it is someone else. But I think that can be more powerful. The self-love today, that can be some kind of replacement for who or what we think that we need. But it can't for the past. I don't believe it can't replace the past. We have to grieve that. And today, the person we think we need, we need ourselves first, way more than we need that other person.
That's really interesting. And actually,
Because, sorry, that's just to finish that. Sorry.
oh,
That's because we're adults now. We're adults now. We weren't. In the past, we were children. We did need that person more than we needed ourselves. Whereas today we're adults and we don't need that person more. We need ourselves more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you're talking about there is a little bit of like inner child healing. But as you say, it's like if something has happened to you in the past, it's not that you need to heal from it so much. It's almost like that happened and that is a part of who you are. And it's about that integration into who you are today.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you say, I love that actually. I really love that. Like, that's in the past. This is now. You can give yourself the self love now and the things that you need. Absolutely. And you can send love to that inner child, but it shouldn't take away from the experience that still happened. And that has made you who you are too.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you don't allow that to come through, then you're denying a part of yourself.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And what we know is, and if you think about it as well, when you're younger and having those experiences, whatever that experience is and whatever the severity of it for you, what happens is at some point as you move through life, it gets generalized. So you needed a whatever it was you needed, probably from an adult or a caregiver. And at some point, as we've come through our life, somehow that has been placed on romantic relationships.
Mm.
And so it's been now we end up saying, well, it doesn't matter if I've got my sister or I've got my nieces and nephews or my friends because I want a romantic relationship. So it doesn't, people talk about self-touch, but getting a massage or a self-hug, it doesn't work because I just want a romantic relationship. But that wasn't the need. That wasn't how we got here. It's been somehow turned into the fact that only a romantic relationship can heal me. And yes, they're powerful. Yes, it's healing. Yes, there's a lot of safety in the right relationship. But it's not where the wound came from. It's almost like they're two separate things that we get so focused on that romantic relationship around healing these abandonment wounds, and it's not what it's about.
Why does it seem to transfer then to romantic relationships? I'm really interested to know.
Yeah, I don't know that we know that answer. I don't know it.
Okay.
And my understanding is that is probably because I've not seen it in the research or I've not come across it. I think the theories are probably just around socially. We all feel like that's kind of on our timeline that we have to be in a relationship and that, we're not good enough if we're not. There is the idea of something about romantic relationships. They're a different kind of intimacy, they're a different kind of connection. And experts say that they are the closest relationships that mirror those early childhood ones.
I thought you might say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it all just gets a bit lost, and we genuinely end up thinking, no, I can't heal because I need that person to love me, and self-love doesn't work because it doesn't feel the same. And it's the same. I'm going off on one, but I worked for many years in substance misuse. And if someone was addicted to drugs, it was pointless to say to them, you just need to find another high, replace it with another high. It's not about that. It's about learning to live without that high. We don't need to just replace these things. So if you're feeling like you need certain kind of love or a certain kind of intimacy, we can miss that. We don't have to try and replace it with all of these other things, with self-love even. If you miss a romantic relationship and you want a romantic relationship, you don't have to try and replace that with self-love. They can be two different things. I think that's the problem. I think sometimes we're using self-love to try and heal certain wounds. It can soften it and it can help us and it can make us more understanding and get us through difficult times and get us in touch with happiness. But it's not a replacement and it's not something that fixes the past.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, self-love is something I focus on a lot in the work that I do. And
I
certainly
love it.
not, it's amazing. It's so healing because it's that connection to yourself. And when we feel connected to ourselves, we feel connected to nature, we feel connected to everything,
Yeah,
whatever you believe.
exactly.
And so, yeah, it really brings this sense of fulfillment and joy and also safety within our body. And feeling safe is like a huge part of it as well, isn't it? The whole anxious attachment thing, because I feel like it's this it's this not trusting of yourself um, to be able to handle life. Um, have you found that to be like one of the most sort of important aspects of the work you do, like helping people to create that safety inside of themselves?
100%.
Mm.
Whatever people are presenting with, and I think in across all of our lives, usually what's holding us back in some way is a fear of something, whether that's a fear of not being good enough, a fear of failure. And underneath that is this fear of not being able to cope, that I won't be able to cope if bad things happen. I won't be able to cope if someone leaves. Is that lack of belief in ourselves. And then we overestimate how bad things will be in our lives. And so that creates so much threat. I won't cope and it will be really bad is very threatening. We don't feel safe.
Mm.
To add attachment wounds to that, that means that possibly a huge portion of your life you've been in kind of a fight or flight state anyway.
Mm.
And so, if anything, this feeling of safety is such a big discussion because there's a lot of people who don't even know that they don't feel safe because it's just been the norm. I was just saying just now, I was having a conversation today that when people first started talking about safety, I was like, I couldn't even imagine the feeling. I didn't understand the feeling. It didn't make any sense to me. It does now through practicing very slowly, regulating my nervous system and slowly having moments of just peace and being okay with it. And then expanding my enjoyment of that feeling. But there was a time where I didn't even understand safety. But whereas now I get it, it is trusting, like you say, trusting I can cope, trusting things won't be as bad as they have been or that my mind imagines that they will be. And just the biggest thing for me is looking around and creating safety in my daily life. And that really helps.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Like creating it on a day-to-day basis, because it's all very well going back and doing that work and healing and reframing and whatever with it all. But it is about right now as well. And like you say, the present moment is all we have. And what your brain is going to focus on, your body is keeping you alive and keeping you alive right now. What is happening right now? Where is the danger right now? It's our survival mechanism. And so there's lots of tangents to go off on here. So I'm trying to
I
not
know.
go off on them. But like in terms of regulation, it's about regulating your nervous system. And knowing that you are okay. It's like being able to create that sense of safety within yourself right now, like you say. So are you able to share any ways that we can regulate our nervous system and help us to feel calm and safe in any moment?
I think to create them, and this is the thing, they'll already exist. So you want to create them, or you probably want to access what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
Creating them is where I started. And that would be things for me. It was like going to a cafe, going somewhere that just kind of gave me this feeling of like, almost like a feeling of awe, like just a feeling of it's just goodness. I don't know. It's just that expansive feeling, and just noticing, literally noticing, what does it feel like in my body when I feel like this? That I didn't know at the time. That was safety. But sometimes it just wasn't much. Sometimes it was just a neutral feeling. There was a bit of a feeling of expansion. Get it a lot if I was around water, when I go outside. It's that, just that feeling of like, ah. And it was just noticing them more, like literally the sun on my face, those moments, and just really asking myself, what does this feel like in my body? The more I created that and paid attention to it and, what's the word, savored it, the more I started to like that feeling. And more then when I was in that threat state, I wouldn't like it. And even now, my partner on his PlayStation, there's a game he was playing. It's sort of like I play it with my niece, so it's like a kid's game, and it stresses me out. And I feel it in my body, and I literally think, this is not enjoyable, even when it's a game. But I wouldn't have recognized that before. But whereas now I can feel the stress going through my body. And I'm like, oh my God, this must be what I used to find normal, this kind of feeling, anything stressful. And in terms of times where it's accessing it, we can access it through meditation, visualization, when you get into bed at night. If you're not someone who worries and ruminates, if you can be in the moment, then, and just literally lie there and really acknowledge, oh wow, like I am in my bed, I'm in my bedroom, it's safe, what is that like, and really take it in. I see it a lot at the moment. So I've got a 10-month-old, and when I put her to bed, and I look at her in her cot and her nice room, the things that I dreamt of, obviously I don't know about that age, but I dreamt of, like a nice, safe home. And I will think to myself, wow, she tonight, as she goes to sleep, as she gets older and is more aware, she's not thinking, oh God, are they going to be, my parents going to be fighting tonight? Oh God, am I going to hear them shouting? Is mum going to be drinking? All of this, she's not thinking it's going to be boring. It's just predictable. Maybe there'll be the odd time, who knows, that like, I don't know, life can throw curveballs. But for the most part, my plan is that will be really normal for her. And that's safety, to go to bed without a fear, and to wake up and to know mum's there, food is there, while we play there in the morning. That's consistency, that predictability, that is safety. And I see it in those moments now, obviously, and it's making me more and more aware of what safety is.
Yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like you've done like a lot of reflection there. And I agree, like it's in those moments, isn't it? About, again, in the moment, how can you bring safety to what's making you feel safe? It's bringing consciousness to your existence and your surroundings and what's going on. And just, it's almost like mindfulness, isn't it? It's like noticing, yeah, right now I'm in my living room.
Yeah.
I feel safe. I feel calm. I'm protected by the walls of the room, things like that. It's noticing, it's pausing, it's slowing down. I just got off another podcast episode and we were talking exactly about that, about slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing in our society at the moment, is that we all just rush around so quickly. And the way we've been, what word do I use here? Cultivated. the way we've been shown, shall we say, is that you got to keep going, keep going, keep going. No time to pause, no time to slow down, just keep going. And that's what we live in because we've been shown that way. It doesn't mean it's the right way. And I'm going to be bold and say, I think it's the wrong way, completely the wrong way, because you're just disconnecting yourself from yourself. Yeah. And it's that disconnection, like we said earlier, that puts you at this unease. Yeah. So finding the times, the moments, the minutes, the seconds, you could be stood waiting for a bus. Just tune into yourself in that moment. Look around you. What's safe about it? Why do you feel calm? Being mindful. Mindfulness is such a powerful tool.
It's one
which
of
is
the
helping.
first, if I had to really name those earlier things I did, mindfulness is way up there. I remember it going to the point of like, I think it might have been Brendan Burchard I heard this from. It was like, even if you, as you open a door today, really notice the handle as you open that door and you walk through that door. And I remember I would literally do things like that. And then there was, yeah, the using my senses. The coffee, the cafes was a big one because of the coffee. I would really use coffee to support those mindful moments. Nature was a big one for that mindfulness, but for sure, that is what it came down to. And the thing about anxiety, and you see it so much in anxious attachment, is exactly like you're saying, there is this huge feeling of urgency.
Yeah.
And we believe it, we follow it, we go with it, which is when we make these big decisions. We do the things, we say the things because we're following this feeling inside of us that says, you must act now because we can't let this happen. We cannot let them leave. We can't be judged. We can't get this wrong. And so we speed up. And really, that is when we need to slow down. We need to slow down, feel the feelings, sit with it. It's going to be uncomfortable, but that's how we do it. And I
Uh,
don't think this isn't groundbreaking information. We know this.
yeah. We all know it. We've heard it and we know it from within us, because if you want the proof, all you got to do is try it.
Yes.
And then you'll know straight away. If you just do this now, whoever's listening right now, just pause it for a second. But hear what I've got to say first. But after this, pause it and just slow down and just start looking around the room or wherever you are, and just start being mindful. Do it for a couple of minutes, then come back to the episode.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the proof. That's all the proof that you need right there.
Isn't it?
And the more you do it, the more expansive and calm that you feel. And this is why I've been such a huge advocate for meditation. And I'm not perfect and I haven't been doing it every day at the moment. But when I do it regularly, it makes a massive, massive difference, because I'm rebuilding that connection with myself. I'm clearing away my thoughts and all the other amazing benefits of meditation.
Yeah.
It does really ground you into the present moment. And it helps you to slow down in those moments of franticness and chaos.
Mm,
And you don't feel as overwhelmed.
exactly.
So while we're on that subject, actually, not meditation, but in terms of actually healing the anxious attachment, what are the steps that you recommend people to take? What's the journey that they need to go on to feel secure?
It always depends on the person in front of me, what those steps look like and what direction we'll go in, because it really does depend on what's hurting you the most right now, what's triggering you the most right now. But in no particular order, we are absolutely looking at our past wounds. What do we need to grieve? Is there anything that needs to be addressed through unmet needs or imagery work, things like that? So that's very much looking at our history, the kind of longitudinal factors. We will need to look at the things that we're doing. There's so many things, so many strategies that people have when they feel anxious. And all they're doing is preventing us from being able to be with the anxiety, from being able to be with the uncertainty in a situation, to feel the feelings. So there's a lot around reducing, eliminating, if we can, unhelpful behaviors, the checking, the chasing, the seeking more and more information. We really have to shift the behaviors, you know. You've mentioned it already, like, but to start to really understand ourselves internally is another uh, sort of factor element we'll be looking at. So what do I need? What do I feel? Can I even name my emotions? Many people with anxious attachment don't even know how they feel. I can have hour conversation with someone, and it doesn't get to this because I will stop them kindly, but if I let them, I think we could spend that hour talking about the person that they like. I can sometimes come away from a session feeling like I know the person that they like more than I know about the person that was just sat there in front of me. And that's because they have this outward orientation. They're looking what other people are thinking, feeling, what was their childhood, what's their attachment style. And we need to go inwards and have these conversations about ourselves, not the other person so much, you know. Thought work, belief work, self-worth work. How are you viewing yourself? Is it accurate? Usually not. How are you viewing love and relationships? Is that accurate for what a healthy relationship is? Usually not. So lots of different avenues we can go down. It will depend on the person's goals, their triggers, what's distressing them, of which avenue we'll go down. There's always themes in terms of what people are presenting with, but what we address, and sometimes we can't even address that yet because the person is currently involved with someone who is treating them poorly. And so we're putting out that fire, you know?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from all of that is really just be with yourself.
Oh,
Stop looking outside of yourself.
We need to see how we're thinking. We need to be able to manage our emotions and have some emotional intelligence. If we can't think balanced and we've got no emotional intelligence, we need to develop that. We need to look at our behaviors, and if we are acting out or playing small, keeping ourselves, you know, small and hidden away, we need to discover who we are. We need to be able to handle our feelings and those physical sensations because they're awful. And all of that together, you can start with the behaviors or the thoughts quite easily, depending on what's presenting for you. And you'll know, quite often people will say to me, I want to stop thinking so much about it. I want to stop ruminating. We'll start there then. And some people will say, I just need to stop reaching out to them. We'll start there then.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Meeting people where they're at is really important. Certainly what I do with my coaching as well, with my wellbeing and life coaching. You have to meet people where they're at and take it from there, because everybody is so different and their wounds are different and their experiences and everything. And what is more important to them may not be the thing that you think you should be working on with them.
This is the thing, and they can't always access it. You know,
Exactly.
I can say to someone, what are you thinking? And they'll be like, I don't know. What do you mean? Or I can say to someone, what do you feel physically in your body? They're like, no idea what you're talking about. So sometimes it blows my mind. I'm sorry if I don't think from what you've said this is you, but sometimes I see people saying, it's crazy, like talk therapy, that's not working because you just need breath work. And I'm like, but what if the person comes to you and they literally don't have, what if they have panic attacks? So you're just going to do breath work with them and give them more panic attacks because they're afraid of breathing in certain ways. So that blows, I can't understand that. And I can only think that that's a sales technique. Unless I'm wrong, I feel like that has to be a sales technique, because how can you as a practitioner say you only need breath work or you only need somatic work or whatever it is? It's like, how do you know?
Yeah, we're all a bit more
You're
complex.
saying that worked for you and that's what we need.
Yeah, we're all a bit more complex than that. And
right.
That's the thing. What works for one person may not work for another. We are bio-individual, and this is a point that I make quite often. It's very important to understand that when you're working with somebody. And I've had similar conversations with people, and they just, they don't feel things. They don't understand, or they can't tune in. They're too blocked, or sometimes they're even not ready to actually be talking to a coach or a therapist. And they're just not in that place. And it's important to not come from a sales perspective, to not make it about making money, and to make it about the person. And if someone is not ready, for example, you have a duty of care and a responsibility as a practitioner to then say to that person, I don't think this is the right time for you, or here's a different person that I feel could help you.
This is the thing. And, you know, with the meeting people where they are, there's usually somewhere we can start. If someone comes to me and they say that I've tried everything and nothing's working and I'm not healing quick enough, there is somewhere these people will get labeled like, oh, they're resistant to therapy, they're resistant to coaching. And I just think they're not resisting. Like, what is going on? It's like when you were saying earlier about if you're in the sort of queue for a bus, I think you said, or something like that, a queue. For me, it's okay. If I'm struggling to slow down, what is it like to feel impatient? What does that impatience feel like? What does it feel like? Because so many people, right, when, especially anxiety, if we say try mindfulness, try yoga, they'll say, but it frustrates me so much. So there's something to start with. Let's start with that frustration. People who say, like, what are you feeling inside? Nothing. Okay, let's start with that. What is it like to feel nothing? You'll get somewhere, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it is really important to start bringing awareness to yourself and to where you're at. And also, the point I was going to make when you were talking there was that, you know, somebody not being ready, for example, that is highlighting that lack of safety right there. Like, that's saying there's a huge mistrust, of oneself, a huge lack of safety, because that's really ultimately what it comes down to. And being in a position where you do feel like you can open up to somebody and you can allow them to hold space for you, you're putting a lot of trust in that person. And so you do have to cultivate that trust, a little bit of that trust, at least within yourself first, to be able to allow someone in, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
So, what would you say to someone who's listening to this and who's thinking to themselves, you know, this is really deeply resonating with me, and I want to get started. I feel I want to get started, but I am feeling a bit scared. What would you say to that person, Carly?
I want to get started, but I'm feeling a bit scared. I'd have to start with, well, look at what those fears are. What there'll be a theme. It's probably not a fear that you're unfamiliar with. It probably shows up in other areas of your life. So I think just name that fear. And is it a fear that you're going to continue to let be in the driver's seat and hold you back? Or are you going to take that fear by the hand and say, we're off, let's go, I'm an adult now, and we're going to go and take some action, or we're going to go and explore this a little bit more, just take a small step, you know, just take a small step. I'm all about small steps.
Yeah, me too.
We can get huge transformation from just one small step.
Yeah. And it's because if you take too many steps forward, you're going to go straight into the panic zone. You're going to turn on your fight or flight or freeze, and you're not going to be able to think rationally. You're not going to be able to calm your nervous system. You'll be disabling your regulation right there and then. So, but when we take those baby steps, we're not overwhelming ourselves. We're just stretching. And I always talk about stretching and just pushing yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, just a little bit. And then when you feel comfortable with that, then pushing yourself again a little bit further and a little bit further. And, you know, I've said this on the show a million times, but the growth is in the discomfort. Carly has just said that before as well. The growth is in the discomfort. It's about understanding that being uncomfortable is okay. It's allowed. And actually, that is how we grow, growing pains. So it's allowing yourself to say, okay, I am going to get a little bit uncomfortable here. it won't be pleasant. But the biggest point I want to make to everyone is that when you do move past your fear, what's on the other side of that? It's never as bad as you think it is. And it's such a freeing place to be. There's actually a lot more lightness there. It is, without going into panic zone, if you can feel the fear and do it anyway, that's where your growth is going to really accelerate.
Yeah, I'm reading that book right now for the second
Susan
time.
Jeffers, yeah.
Yeah, literally, like I think it's on my story right now because I was reading it this morning.
Oh, there you
First
go.
chapter. Crazy. Yeah, I just thought, of all the books that I've got, let's reread one, and that's the one. And there you go.
Well, I'm very intuitive. What can I say? But no, that's lovely, Carly. Really helpful information there for everyone. And yeah, it's really interesting to have a conversation with you. And there's a lot that I do that you do, I think, and vice versa. So it's like super fascinating to see the crossover. Is there anything, any last message that you would like to share with everyone today?
I don't think so. Like, I've loved the conversation. People are still listening. Like, thank you so much for being here with us. And yeah, just thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah, Carly reached out to me and I thought, absolutely, I'm having her on the show because
Thank you.
clearly we've been on similar paths and I think there's a lot of resonance there and between us. So I just kind of got you. I was like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think Claire would have said this to you when she was reaching out, but there was thought behind the podcasts that we reached out to. It really, this wasn't a case of, can you just get me on podcast? There's thought behind who we're reaching out to. And I hope that comes, that's one of my goals when we first started this, Claire and I, is I want them to know that this is not you just randomly reaching out to people.
Yeah. And the way it should be, I think.
You can feel
know,
it, can't you?
yeah, absolutely. It makes such a difference. It makes
Yeah.
such a difference. Absolutely. Nothing's rehearsed and it's just from the heart. And that's where
Yeah.
we always want to be, where I always try to be for everyone anyway. Well, Carly, you've been amazing. You're such a beautiful soul. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been my absolute pleasure having you on. And how can the listeners find you if they want to work with you or if they have any questions? Where's the best place?
Yeah, I always feel like there's like a few layers to this. So I think if you want to really dive into attachment stuff and kind of have that longer content of what I do, that would be the podcast Lessons in Attachment. If you just want kind of some hot tips, a sneak peek into behind the scenes and what I get up to, that would be Instagram, carly.ann_. And if you want to see like how to work with me and what offers I have and things like that, probably my website, which is carlyann.co.uk.
Lovely. And I'll pop all those links in the show notes so everybody's got them to access.
Thank you.
Super. Well, thank you for coming on once again. Lots of love to you, Carly. Take care.